Welcome to the Wellness Warehouse podcast. I'm your host, Tara Nee, or as I'm known to many, Coach T Nee. This is a podcast that discusses several aspects of mental health, total body wellness, the benefits of having a good support system, and much more. As a certified professional, I will help you find solutions to common stressors. That's always a hard word for me to say. While unpacking your past traumas and helping you form new positive behaviors. Can I ask you a quick favor? If you have loved this show and it's helped you, can you please consider leaving it a rating and a review? It really helps give the show traction and allows me to keep supporting others and do what I love. Please tag the show on Instagram at Wellness Warehouse Podcast. You can also tag me at Coach T Nee, that's CoachTKNEE. I greatly appreciate your support. Thank you so much. Now, on to our episode. Well, we are at episode 7 today, Overextension, Burnout, and Too Many Responsibilities. I think we've all been there once or twice in our life, or maybe we are currently there today. Having too many responsibilities or trying to juggle more than you can handle will often lead to burnout and emotional fatigue, physical exhaustion, stress, and, of course, tension. For many years, burnout has been recognized as an occupational hazard for various people oriented professions, such as human services, education, and healthcare. That statement comes from a World Psychiatry journal I was reading titled Understanding the Burnout Experience Recent Research and Its Implications for Psychiatry. That was written and researched by Christina Maslach and Michael P. Leiter. I hope I didn't butcher their names. It goes on to add that the therapeutic service relationships that such providers develop with recipients require an ongoing and intense level of personal emotional contact. Although such relationships can be rewarding and engaging, they can also be quite stressful. Burnout itself is defined as a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. It occurs when you feel overwhelmed, emotionally drained, or unable to meet constant demands. According to some mental health professionals, burnout often occurs in the workplace and it's three-dimensional. The key dimensions of this response are an overwhelming exhaustion, feelings of cynicism, detachment from the person, place, or issue, accompanied by a sense of ineffectiveness and lack of accomplishment. The significance of the three-dimensional model is that it clearly places the individual stress experience within a social context and involves the person's conception of both itself and others. Now, we've already discussed prolonged exposure to continuous stress and its causes, how that causes serious risk to your health. You put yourself at higher risk for developing many symptoms, asthma, heart disease, stomach ulcer, stroke, heart attack. Constant worry and anxiety can create nausea, acid reflux, stomach ulcers. I mean, it's just a plethora of things. So, as we continue to unpack these common stressors, I think we're week 7 now or week 8. So we have a few more weeks to go. There's a few more segments. Please allow me to provide you with some tips that will help you combat this physical and mental burnout. And although it seems that burnout really occurs in the workplace or within a work type setting, it can also occur with any situation. And as I had mentioned just a moment ago, it really is burnout is something that can lead not just to stress and tension, but to emotional fatigue. So we'll talk a little bit more about fatigue here in just a moment. Wow. Okay, I'm going to try to get this back together so at least I'm pleasant to listen to today. By the way, it is about 90 degrees already here in the Pacific Northwest. Today is June 28th, just about 7 a.m. And this episode doesn't air till 9, but I'm pre-recording for you because it is so hot today. I needed to record here in the morning for you so that you would have something to listen to before I am just sweating bullets and don't have time or patience to record. Unfortunately, most of us here in Western Washington don't prepare for this type of weather, so we don't have air conditioners. So our homes by about 9 o'clock in the morning are somewhere between 90 and 100 degrees. Today, it's supposed to top out in some places at 112 and 117 degrees. I can't remember ever in my 45 years of being a Washingtonian ever having this type of weather here in the Pacific Northwest. So it's definitely a first. We're definitely setting some records. So thank you so much for bearing with me, and thank you for being here today. So as we continue to unpack these stressors, I want to leave you with some tips that you hopefully will find helpful in combating both that physical and mental burnout on your own. Although I do always recommend working with a certified life coach or mental health therapist, a counselor, somebody on a professional level that can really guide you through some things. And I am always happy to do that for you. If you'd ever like to have a free consultation, please give me a call at 425-772-5509, or you can reach out to me on social media or email me at Tara, that's Taira, at coachtini.com. Or reach out on Instagram or Twitter. That's at Coach Teeny, CoachTknee. And yes, I just did give you my business phone number. Please, please use that only for serious inquiries. Thank you so very much. Okay, so first let's identify the 5 stages of burnout. Get the honeymoon phase where you undertake a new task. You often start by experiencing high job satisfaction, commitment, energy, creativity. Then comes the onset of stress. The second stage of burnout begins with an awareness of some days being more difficult than others, then chronic stress, then the burnout, and then habitual burnout. So that's kind of the 5 stages of how it progresses. So, what can we do? If you feel overburdened, if you're just doing too much, let's start with making a list of priorities. Okay, so number one, I'm going to give you, I think, 5 or 6 tips here. And number one would be make a list of priorities. Again, you know how much I love lists. And I honestly believe that they're just so helpful at keeping us accountable and helping us feel accomplished. Because a lot of the times there are just so many distractions, whether you're working from home and it's things in the home, or you're working at work and it's other people asking you to do things, interrupting you when you're working on a project. There are just so many things that can distract us from any task that we're working on. So making that list allows us to work on that. And I'm going to talk to you to the next number 2 on the list, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, is practicing the 5-minute rule. But making that list of priorities, sometimes when we feel overburdened, it's not the case of doing, it's a case of doing too many tasks. It's what I'm trying to say. I think when you feel overburdened, it's not that you aren't doing what you're supposed to be doing, but it's just a case of doing too many tasks rather than spending too much time on the wrong tasks. Okay. So if you feel overburdened, sometimes it's not a case of doing too many tasks. Rather, it's a case of spending too much time on the wrong tasks. There you go. There's great value in embracing your emotional intelligence and applying that 5-minute rule. First, I'm recommending that you create a list of your tasks and sort them according to priority, 1 being the most important. The second thing we can do is practice that 5-minute rule. What's the 5-minute rule, you ask? I'm so glad you asked. According to emotional intelligence professionals, the 5-minute rule works like this. You force yourself to work on a task for just 5 minutes with the understanding that you can quit after 5 minutes if you'd like. With this new condition, your brain is essentially tricked into seeing your gargantuan task differently. So the brain actually says to itself something like, oh, wow, 5 minutes? That's nothing. That's less than a YouTube video we're about to watch. I can handle 5 minutes. So we're kind of leading our mind into a place where things don't seem so overwhelming. I know I have told my children when the dishes get a little stacked up in the sink after dinner, if we wait till tomorrow, then it's double. Then it seems like more of a gargantuan task. Then it seems like, our brains go, gosh, that's just so much. I don't want to do that. That's just so big. So if we sort of trick ourselves into seeing it differently, or as I would say, re-anchor a positive thought as opposed to a negative thought, which is, oh my gosh, that's so overwhelming, as opposed to, you know what, I can just take it out in little chunks, little bits and pieces, and that won't be so bad. 5 minutes is nothing. We can handle 5 minutes. So practice the 5-minute rule. Try it, see if it works for you. Let me know. Number 3 would be delegate tasks to others. When we entrust a task or responsibility to another person, we relieve ourselves of the responsibility or burden of completing that task. Delegation allows you to make the best use of your time and skills, and it helps other people in your team or in your family or in your circle of wherever you're working develop to reach their full potential as well. So delegation can actually work for you, but can actually work for the people around you where they feel more appreciated by having something to do rather than you doing everything. Because sometimes when we are overburdened, we have stress. So let's use this in like a family situation, because I know I can probably apply this personally too. So there's four of you in the family. If one of you is doing more than anybody else, maybe more household chores, or maybe more errands, or maybe someone does all the finances, all the errands, all the driving, everything like that, then that person's going to feel overwhelmed, overexerted, exhausted, like they've taken on too much responsibility. So delegating tasks to others allows everybody to be very balanced, allows everybody to have a contribution that can take stress off of others. So again, it helps others in the team grow and develop and reach their full potential. So number 3, delegate tasks to others. Number 4, automate as much as you can. With all of today's technology, automation is truly stress relieving. It's a truly stress relieving blessing. Some of the advantages of automation are greater productivity, better reliability, and easier governance. So this more applies to a position with your job that you're in, that you can have automation. Obviously, it doesn't apply as much in a personal situation because automation is something we have that is technology. So greater productivity allows the employees or staff to spend more time making a bigger or greater impact on the business. Better reliability, it reduces the amount of human intervention that you have to run into less oversights, issues, things like that. Easier governance, more people means more potential for knowledge gaps. So there's that. Number 5, micro breaks. This is probably next to the 5-minute rule, my favorite. These are becoming a huge resource in many large and small corporations. Employees who suffer from burnout can benefit from slowing down and just taking a micro break. A micro break is defined as a short break that you take from your work during the day. This could be anything from standing up to stretch, to chatting with a coworker for a couple minutes, or even going to grab a coffee. And I do work from home and I occasionally get up, go grab a coffee. Those little micro breaks for me are very, very helpful in keeping my day balanced. I referenced the employee in this situation, but this activity is really beneficial for everyone, whether, again, like I was just saying, whether you're a stay at home parent or you work from home, you're an in home caregiver, anyone can experience burnout. And if you don't practice time management and healthy behaviors, it can definitely lead to overwhelming exhaustion and stress and emotional burnout. Micro breaks are one of those activities that work to alleviate that overburden and exhaustion. Last but not least, learning to say no. This is huge. Sometimes overtime is mandatory and sometimes it's elective. If it's mandatory, obviously there's nothing you can do about it. If it's the contract that you signed, you must work the overtime. You're going to have to find other ways to work around that, in a sense of, maybe you're going to get more rest. Maybe you're going to, just having to reorganize your time management or reorganize your calendar for better time management. But if it's elective, learning to say no, whether it's work or even a favor for a family member, learning to say no is no easy task. I hosted an episode on this topic a few years ago on a podcast I used to have called It All Begins With You. I might see if I can add that content to the end of this episode if we have time. If not, I will definitely add a link so that it is available to you. I hope all of this content seems valuable to you. I hope I've left you with some information that you can find useful in your day-to-day practices. Because remember, the only way to combat stress is to find the tools that work for you in your favor and apply them to the activities, thoughts, and processes. This also takes PMA, positive mental attitude. We will discuss more about that later in our stressor series. PMA is definitely something it's a must have. It's a must have in your toolbox. But for now, please be kind to yourself and work towards finding balance and peace. If I could encourage you even more today, practice patience. Anything we practice, we get better at over time. Just keep going. You're doing a remarkable thing today, equipping yourself with these tools. This is a form of self love, self help, and you are being proactive. And I'm so proud of you for taking the time out of your day to be here to encourage yourself to try to do better and to learn and to grow. I love you with much gratitude, Coach Teeny. Until next time. Thank you so much for listening to episode 7. Now, here is the extra content I promised you about learning to say no. The original air date for this episode was February 8th, 2017. Thank you so much again for listening. I hope you enjoy this extra added content. Let's talk a little bit about stress and some things that can cause stress. So what is stress? Well, it's the physical reaction we have when we cannot process everything that's going on in our life. So almost everybody in the world is going to have stress at some point in their life, whether it's with, family members or friends or businesses or business to business contact, whatever it may be. There is always going to be you're always going to experience some type of stress. So the main thing is, so we know that it's pretty much inevitable to avoid stress throughout our lifetime. But how do we deal with it? What are some things that we can do? Today, I want to talk a little bit about learning to say no, because that is one thing that really adds to stress in your life. And you may not really relate those two, or maybe you do. Maybe you're like, oh my gosh, it's so hard for me to say no, and I'm so overwhelmed, and that's what causes my stress. Or maybe you don't realize that setting that healthy boundary and not saying yes to everything, even to, the people you love, or I'm not saying you can tell your boss, maybe your film director or whoever it may be that, oh, I'm sorry, no, because sometimes we do have to say yes, but setting those healthy boundaries is what it's about. And so, no one knows our thoughts or feelings, so it's really up to us to be able to set those boundaries. And when we feel obligated to people and projects, and we know that they're taking up time that we really can't spare, we need to be able to say no. So, I realized at one point that I wasn't aware of my own true feelings on a lot of matters. And that just comes with, getting to know yourself and how you deal with things that may cause those stressful situations for you, or, situations where, maybe someone's asked you to help them move, or maybe your boss has asked you to take on an extra project. And again, while we can't say no directly, sorry, 1 second here. I'm going to just turn down Bieber. He's getting a little loud today. Gotta love you. Love you, Biebs, if you're listening. I love you. All right. Anyways, so back to what we were saying. So, you can't always say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do that to your boss, or, whatever it may be, or to that film agent. Yeah, sorry, I can't be there at that time. But you can set boundaries, and when you're aware of your true feelings, setting those boundaries becomes easier and easier. I was reading through a book that I picked up at my local library, and it's called The Stress Pandemic, and it's by Paul Holijich, and I probably butchered his last name, so sorry, Paul. But he was talking about a lot of the same stuff about learning to say no, and he was saying in his own experience, he had realized that he was unaware of his feelings on a lot of matters too. And I felt the same way. When I read it, I thought, wow, I can relate with him. And he was talking about when you begin saying no, how there's kind of a period of adjustment, because you feel so much guilt in saying no to someone, especially, when it's someone you care about or someone you feel obligated to. And so how do we do that? How do we, give in, so to speak, to our true feelings and allow ourselves to set those healthy boundaries, but not offend or hurt someone's feelings? How do we do that? So practice. Obviously, with anything, the more you practice, the better you get. So you got to start practicing saying no to commitments and obligations and requests from others that you really truly can't do. And don't feel like you have to apologize for these things either. Maybe say something like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm unable to commit to that at this point in time. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't see how I'm going to be able to complete that task with the other tasks I have.
Is there a certain timeline for that when it can be completed? Can it be done tomorrow or the next day or the next day? As opposed to, yes, boss, I'll do it. And then putting it on your stack and staying 3 hours late. Because if you have a family to get home to and you're staying late at work, you're not adding value to that employer or to your own life, because your home life is going to suffer because your family is missing you while you are giving that extra time. And you're not setting that boundary with the employer. They know you're willing to work overtime. Well, you know what? I'm self-employed, and I know a lot of people that are self-employed, independent contractors, CEOs. And, unless someone says directly, I'm sorry, we cannot be here at this time, I'm going to take advantage of everything I can get. So, and I'm not saying that I take advantage of people, and I'm not saying you should either. What I'm saying is that without that communication, without that boundary there, it's gonna get broke. I mean, there's no other way to put it. So, no balance. There's no balance when there's no boundary.
So that was pretty much the content I had back from 2017 in regards to learning to say no. It's so great to listen to how much I've grown. I know that you probably heard it as well as I did. I was definitely doing some different things back then that I am now. I actually have quite a bit more education under my belt as well, but it's always fun to go back and listen to that. I do believe that I did hit on some really great points as far as learning to say no and how it's so important that we set these healthy boundaries. We'll talk more about healthy boundaries in new episodes to come as well. But I just think that it's really, really important that we all really stick together and work together as a team, whether it's in a professional or personal environment. Learning to say no is healthy. We don't want to ever offend someone or be inconsiderate or unpolite about it, but it is very healthy to say, I'm sorry, I don't feel that I have the capacity to take on that project for you, or I'm sorry, I don't have the time to do that for you right now. I really wish I could help, but I can't. And saying those kind of things and not feeling guilty about it. And I think that's one of the main things that you, me, everybody struggles with guilt and shame. And I won't go too far into that right now, but I think that's probably the one reason why it's so hard to say no is we feel guilty or shameful when we do that. Just remember that what you're doing is for you, and setting that healthy boundary is helping you be a better person. Setting that healthy boundary and saying no now may open doors for you to be able to say yes later. So keep that in mind, that everything's working together for good. Again, thank you for listening to the extra content. I would love your feedback, and it's so great to just be here with you today. And I thank you again for listening to my content today and my old content. Hope you giggled a little bit, because I know I did. Thank you so very much. Again, thank you for listening to the Wellness Warehouse with Coach Teeny.